President Buhari is asking Nigerians to unite at the time when our country is faced with multiple challenges, which according to him are surmountable problems only when we come together as one. And more groups continue to commend the southern governors on their positions after yesterday's meeting. Tonight, we dedicate this 1 hour to getting perspectives into the resolutions. Hello everyone and welcome to Politics Today live on China's television. Happy Eid al-Fitr to all of our Muslim brothers out there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. President Muhammadu Buhari has been asking Nigerians to come together as a unit in the country in a time that the nation's history has been faced with a lot of security problems. The president is sending his best wishes to all Nigerians and Muslims as a mark the Eid al-Fitr to mark the end of fasting. In a statement he personally signed, President Muhammadu Buhari prayed that the Eid al-Fitr festival brings with it unity and solidarity among all citizens, as well as peace, safety, security, brotherhood, and love. The president says he believes the occasion should be a reminder to Nigerians the importance of sharing through the faiths and common bonds that should serve to unite all regions and religions. The statement reads in part, quote, "Unity and solidarity among all citizens, Muslims and Christians are imperative, especially at a time when our country is faced with multiple challenges which are surmountable only when we come together as one. We should jointly pray against the tragic incidents of kidnapping and banditry and the desperate quest for political power expressed through blackmail against the existence of our country as a united entity," end of quote. Before we get into our conversation, which we give you some interesting perspectives on the way forward for us, these are some of your political roundup stories.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, was in Uganda today to represent President Muhammadu Buhari at the inauguration of President Yoweri Museveni, which held at the Kololo Independence Grounds in Kampala, Uganda. Before heading to Uganda, the VP made a stop in Lagos at a smart card facility. The Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma has dissolved the State Executive Council, leaving 8 out of the 28 commissioners to continue their work. The government says the governor's action is predicated on the need to rejig the activities of the state government after a year in office. The chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Abdulrashid Bawa, says he has so far recovered a total of $153 million and 80 houses valued at $80 million from former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Alison Madueke. He adds that the EFCC is looking forward to the time the former Petroleum Resources Minister will be in the country. Mr. Bawa disclosed that some of the other cases against the former minister include the $115 million INEC bribery, noting that there are still hurdles to cross if the commission is to bring the former minister to justice. And about 2,244 polling units may be available for voting in Bayelsa State. This is after the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, expanded voters' access to polling units by converting 440 existing voting points. Head of Operations at the Bayelsa State Office of INEC, Mary Emawanya, gave a breakdown of how the voting points were converted in all the local government areas in the state.
There have been a series of responses to the decisions of the governors of the southern region after their meeting in Asaba, the capital of Delta State, yesterday. The Southern Senators Forum has commended governors from the region for taking a firm position on burning national issues, including banning open grazing of cattle. The senators submitted that such deft and unanimous policy would help in reining in those hiding under cattle grazing to unleash terror of kidnapping and killing of the residents of the region. And their counterparts in the Green Chambers, the lower chambers of the National Assembly, the Southern House of Representatives member have joined their voices also. They said in a statement released today, quote, "This position is in firm restatement of our insistence that our nation must exist and governed on the platform of democratic tenets of social justice, equity, fairness, mutual respect, true federalism, rule of law, and constitutional order, and we are ready to deploy all legislative instruments at our disposal for actualization, end quote. Another group that's spoken up about this is the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF. PANDEF says, quote, the resolutions re-emphasize our positions, particularly on restructuring, open grazing, and the alarming state of insecurity. Citizens now live in fear and no longer able to freely pursue various livelihoods across the country due to the security situation. PANDEF had repeatedly averred that open grazing is outdated, it is archaic, and it should not be allowed to continue in a society like ours. The days of open grazing are over, and the sooner those who are in that business realize it, the better for us all. End of quote. Let me remind you of some of the recommendations of the Southern Governors Forum, which we dwelled on tonight, yesterday, and we will be dwelling on that tonight and get some different perspective from what you got yesterday on the program. So take a look at what they are asking for, just part of some of the things that they agreed on. Part of it is a ban on open grazing, restriction of cattle movement by foot across the South, President Buhari to address the nation, urgent and bold step to restructure Nigeria, the adoption of state policing, review of revenue formula in favor of federating units, federal government to convoke national dialogue, review of federal security appointments to reflect federal character. These are some of the resolutions of the government. But we'll pick some of the important ones tonight. And to give more insight at this time to these issues is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, who joins us from Ikeja area of Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, for joining us. Let's take these issues one after the other. Item 1 on that list is the ban of open grazing across the state. First and foremost, as a lawyer, what is the implication of this? So when you ban it across a region, what does this mean in the eye of the law?
Well, what it does mean is that in order to secure the life and property of every citizen in every state in the country, open grazing, night grazing, underage grazing will no longer be allowed in the country. And when you look at it, it is also in the interest of the herders, whereby the governors before now, and this is very important, the governors had agreed before now, and I'm talking of their meeting, I refer to the meeting of the governors, all the governors, held on the 11th of February this year, where they unanimously agreed that open grazing should no longer be allowed in the country, and that indeed the country has got to the stage where it has to transit to modern husbandry, whereby ranching will replace open grazing. That is the decision of all the governors. So what the southern governors did in Asaba was to reiterate this position. It's a popular decision by all the 36 state governments in Nigeria.
But does this resolution and the position of these governors, does it need to be gazetted? Does it need to be backed by law? Does it need to be passed through the National Assembly or the House of Assemblies of these regions? Because the reason I'm asking is this. If anybody is caught doing this, under what law would they be prosecuted?
Yes, thank you very much. I have read the resolutions, and for me, the governors have done very well. They need to mobilize their northern colleagues. They need to walk their talk. Because if they expect that the presidency will act on these resolutions, I mean, the governors may be wasting their precious time. And what happened today was that the Minister of Information, Alagilai Muhammad, said on behalf of the government, oh, we are not opposed to restructuring. However, we don't want the separation of the country. Minister, was he speaking for the president, for the country, and for the federal government? And that was why the governors are asking the president to address the nation by responding to these fundamental suggestions made to advance the cause of the unity of the country, to ensure that there is security of life and property, and that the welfare of our people will be taken into cognizance in line with the provisions of the Constitution.
So, I mean, let me go back.
Governors will have to, each of the state government will have to make enabling laws to translate the decisions in the communique to legal instruments. Of course, there are some legal instruments in play. We have the animal diseases law in every state that guides the movement of cattle, trade animals. We have in place the regional, some of the states have enacted the regional security networks. Each of the states in the southwest, for instance, Ekitito, or your state, has enacted the Amotekun Core law. In Lagos, you have the neighborhood watch law, and I know now that the northeast zone has always had the JTF, the Joint Task Force, and of course, you have the ISBA, police in the northwest. In the southeast, the governors have just agreed now to set up a regional network called Abube Agu. In the south and the north central, you have vigilante groups, taking care of the security of the people and assisting the police where it is possible. So, in a way, you already have state police in place in each of the regions, in each of the states. What I think is now being demanded is the formalization and a decentralization of the Nigerian police force in order to meet the security challenge the nation is facing.
So, I mean, it comes to a point where, if you look at some of the recommendations made by the southern governors, I'm not sure, in my very little years that I spent, that I've not heard or seen most of these recommendations or resolutions before. The question is, there isn't any of this item that is new, except for the fact that they're asking the president to address the nation. That is one thing that they think is urgent and to be done. But the question is that you said you want the governor to walk the talk. So one of the issues that you have raised is that they need to bring up enabling law. Where does the National Assembly come into play here? The State Assembly might have their own role to play, but in the real picture of it, Mr. Falano, is that does this recommendation, in your own view, solve our insecurity problem, especially in the southern region of the country?
Well, I think for the entire country, these resolutions will be very useful. They have come at the right time. I mean, not too late in the day. I mean, the governors have now formally joined the campaign for restructuring, as opposed to, the demand for balkanization of the country, which in the first place was brought about by the insistence of the presidency to disregard calls for restructuring, even when it is boldly entrenched in the manifesto of the ruling party. That was one of the reasons why some people voted for the APC. When about 3 years ago, it was clear the APC had abandoned the demand for power devolution. Of course, the APC as a party, I mean, when it was clear the federal government, the Buhari administration, was not interested in restructuring, the APC was embarrassed, and the election was around the corner. So the APC quickly set up a committee headed by the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Rufai. That committee came up with profound recommendations on restructuring. Again, the presidency has not acted on the recommendation. Now that the governors are united in demanding for restructuring, the regional groups, nationality groups, PANDEF, Afenifere, Ohanese, ACF, Middle Belt Forum, all of them are now united in demanding for restructuring. So it's a popular cause in the country. With respect to, the only condition, it is only the trade unions, civil rights movement, the human rights community, and the progressive expression of the human rights community that are conditionalizing the demand for restructuring. Their position is you must have horizontal and vertical restructuring. In other words, the powers that are going to devolve, that are going to be transferred from the center to the regions or the state must be democratized so that the people can participate in the governance of their country. So that when you set up state police, it will be like the Nigerian police force. Those states, if you have the structure in place, state police should respect the wishes of our people. There won't be state police force, but state police service to respect the human rights of the people, to ensure that the life and property of every citizen in our country is protected. So that would be the difference. But again, for me, as I said, some of the demands, and that's why I'm saying the governors will have to walk their talk. The demands have been circulating around the country for quite some time. But now that the security situation in the country warrants urgent legislative intervention, the governors will have to proceed by having a meeting of state attorneys general to study these recommendations and put the machinery in place for translating them into laws.
I would like to go.
So I've also read the position of the southern legislators, southern senators, southern House of Representative members, and so on and so forth. For me, they also tally. These positions also tally with the resolutions of both the House of Representatives and the Senate over insecurity in the country. Both chambers of the National Assembly have called for state police. So beyond what the governors can do through the houses of assembly, the National Assembly will have to now, sponsor a bill for the appropriate alteration of the necessary provisions of the Constitution. And happily, or coincidentally, the National Assembly Constitutional Review Committee will be meeting in all the regions, I think
the public hearing,
the 26th and 29th of May. And these recommendations have been sent to the National Assembly. And I think what the legislators now want to do is to have the buy-in of our people, the endorsement of the Nigerian people.
Okay, so we're due for a break, but before that break, Mr. Falano, because I would like you to touch on the matter on the restructuring. I've said this over and over on the program, that the restructuring matter means different things to different people and is being used as a blanket term to refer to so many things. But before we go deeper into that, and what the National Assembly has done, a lot of criticism on the activities of the Constitution Amendment Committee, which will go into public hearing across the region. But give us a sense of what you make of these items. When the Southern governor said they want President Buhari to address the nation, what effect would this have on the security situation?
Well, it's a polite invitation to the president to respond to these recommendations that are meant to address the security situation in the country. The governors are saying, we want to have state police. We want you to decentralize the Nigerian police force. But the funding is important. The funding, because when you are talking of security, we must also go beyond physical security. Oh, having enough police personnel, having adequate weapons, and so on and so forth. you must also address social security, which is more fundamental. The young people are leaving schools, who are leaving universities and other tertiary institutions, will have to be gainfully employed so that they will not be attracted to criminality. So by asking the government, the president, to address the nation, the governors are also asking him, you must respond to the demand for the revenue allocation formula will have to be altered in favor of the states and the local government. Right now it's 52% for the federal government and 48% for the states and local government. This is inequitable. And I think that is why the governors are saying, you must alter the revenue, sharing formula. I do recall that the 2040 National Conference delegates asked for, I think, recommended 35% for the federal government and 65% for the states and local government, where the question of governance really should touch the people. And let me also say this, if you are going to the specifics about restructuring, it is important to let Nigerians know that there has been a struggle since 1999 in what can be referred to as restructuring by litigation. Many of the powers either to exercise exclusively by Abuja, by the federal government, have been taken through the courts and given to the states and local government. For instance, the federal government was seizing the funds of local government. The Lagos State went to court in the case of AG Lagos, AG of the Federation, to say, how dare you, under Section 162 of the Constitution, each tier of the government shall have the money credited to it, paid to it automatically. And the Supreme Court, so held. If you are talking about land, the federal government wanted to control the entire land in the country. The state government said no. And cases were filed, and the Supreme Court said the land in every state is vested in the governor. In other words, and I think this argument came up when people were talking about Ruga. And I did say, the president in Abuja does not control any land in Nigeria other than the land in the federal capital territory. So unless you give land to the federal government for Ruga, nobody in Abuja can pass on any state. Again, the federal government used to control physical planning in the country. In the case of AG Lagos, AG of the Federation, I think the decision was even a split one, 4-3, by the justices of the Supreme Court, 7 of them. And they came to the conclusion that physical planning is not in the exclusive legislative list. So it is the business of the state. It is the same thing with entertainment levy. Lagos State rolled out some laws, 4 of them, I think under Governor Fashola, and the federal government went to court. The federal government lost on the ground that entertainment levy is not in the exclusive legislative list. In the case of Lagos, you used to have, people were asked to rush to Abuja to collect licenses if you wanted to mine sand in Lagos, And again, a case was filed to challenge the power of the federal government to control the waterways in Lagos. And I think it was the Court of Appeal by the Honorable Justice Garba. He read the lead judgment. It's now in the Supreme Court. His Lordship said under the Constitution, when you look at the concurrent and the legislative list, the federal government can only control intra-waterways. That is, water between 2 states. But with respect to inland waterways, that is the business of state government. I can go on and on.
So, it brings me to
15 to 20 cases have been won.
Yeah. So it brings me to that point. Yeah.
1999 and now on restructuring by what I call restructuring by litigation. So we now have to take other items.
Well,
control by Abuja, agriculture, primary school education.
Let me come in if I may, please.
The federal government said they were going to.
Sorry. People, some Nigerians have, let me please ask this question quickly. Those who have criticized the process of the constitutional amendment, and
what the governors are now saying, what the regional leaders are now saying, and what the human rights community and civil rights organizations are saying. We realized the military took over all these powers in 1966 when they came on board. Now that the military has left and they post a constitution on the country, let us now as free people decide for ourselves the kind of constitution we want for the country. What should be in the exclusive legislative list and what should be in the concurrent. While matters that are not covered by both become residual. And those powers will be within the exclusive control of state governments. So this is what restructuring is all about. And of course, the question of the economy is key. That was not properly addressed in the Asaba Declaration. Apart from demanding for a new revenue allocation formula, the governors will have to, all the governors will have to take more interest in the management of the economy by the central bank. The central bank has taken over the economy completely. The central bank funds agriculture, housing, all manners of activities outside the Central Bank Act. And so that is why the governors, as members of the National Economic Council of the country, will have to ensure that the economy is not grounded by the central bank, that the question of the valuation of the national currency, the naira, through dollarization, as recommended by the IMF and the World Bank, will have to be questioned.
All right. We're due for a break. We're due for a break, Senior Advocate. When we come back, yeah. So for those who have debated the process of restructuring and the fact that this constitution is not the kind of constitution Nigeria needs and how to replace it or how to fix it. Some are even say, let us not fix it. Let us change it totally. How do we go about it? Some of the resolution and the recommendation in Asaba yesterday is what gets us talking. Let's take a breather. And when we come back, we'll talk more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Most importantly is the economic empowerment of the Fulanis, of the herdsmen. They need a system that will improve the animal husbandry that they are practicing. I think that is also an issue that people don't even talk about. We're only talking about the security, but we're not talking about their economic improvement of their life, which is also creating, security challenges.
But how do you separate the criminal Fulani herdsman from the non-criminals?
Well,
it's a painful one, but isn't it?
If we have data, with technology, it's easier to do that. First of all, we make sure that all the herdsmen, like other Nigerians, are being forced to have national identification, which tells a lot of what they are, their picture, their everything, and also using technology with communication. Once you get some few criminals out of them, you can get a lot of information from there. You can get the people that they are communicating with. You see? But when business is as usual, how do we move forward? Now, those who are saying banning trekking with cattle from north to the south is affecting human rights, they have not told us a solution.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. We're still in the conversation. Reactions continue to trail on the Southern Governor's resolution from Asaba yesterday. I've been speaking with Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana. But let's take a pause. Mr. Falana, please stay with us. I want to bring some lawmakers into the conversation because this matter largely also concerned the lawmakers who at some point will have to weigh in on this matter and do the needful according to what the governors are asking. So let me bring an opposition lawmaker, Senator Tajuddin Yusuf, a member of the House of Representatives representing Kogi State. He joins us from Nairobi in Kenya. Said, it's good to see you, Honorable, and thank you so much for coming. Some of your colleagues have commended what the southern governors, you are a northern lawmaker from Kogi State, interestingly. A Yoruba man, though, but you're a northern lawmaker. But give us your thought on what the recommendations of the southern governors. First and foremost, what do you make of those recommendations in the first place?
Yes. Thank you very much for this privilege. I want to sincerely say it is overdue. I'm elated. It is bold. And it is done in the interest of the unity of this nation. It's overdue. For the first time in over 10 years in political space, I find our governors jettison partisanship, put the issue of nation building and development at the forefront of their meeting. I'm impressed. It is now for the president and our brothers from the north too, we are from the north, to see beyond partisanship, to see beyond ethnicity, religion, and adopt this process, this procedure that will be laid down. The southern governors are calling on the president to speak to Nigerians because they feel as the leader of the nation, when the nation is in crisis, the leader rises to the occasion. His words bring succor. His word brings direction. His words speak to certain situations that ordinarily would not react to any other person. Garba Shehu is not the president of Nigeria. We're tired of hearing Garba Shehu. In a situation like this, the president rises and speaks. COVID, just on COVID, the president of Kenya speaks monthly to the people of Kenya, just on COVID. So the governors are saying, hey, we have come to realize that criminals mixed with the headers cause trouble in our states. A lot of effort has been made to make the federal government take certain decisive action earlier than this. But federal government failed. I watched the government of Akwa Ibom lamenting how they caught some people with guns. The police released them. The president must come to terms with one reality. He is the president of Nigeria. What got me so excited again is that whatever we do as constitutional amendment will still go through the state. 2/3 of the states of the federation must adopt that position because before it becomes, a law that can be seen as being worthy of being sent into the president for assent. So I'm happy that governors are seeing, coming from this position, coming as a team, as a unit, to say security is beyond pettiness and partisanship. On the issue of the economy that you raised, sharing formula, what have you, is part of restructuring. I've said it on this forum several times. Which federation have you found in the world where people gather to share revenue monthly? Each state come to share. No. Part of the reason why we have this insecurity is because the center has so much. People come from outside Nigeria. People who are not Nigerians. I make bold to say a lot of these criminals are people who come due into Nigeria as they have come out of the crisis in these higher regions of Africa. So they have a free border because people assume or have come to one condition that Abuja, money in Abuja is free money. Until states begin to generate their own resources and take care of their issue. Canada, like I use example, Canada does not share money every month to federation units. The oil license in Canada is given by the state. Federal tax them. The idea of everybody sitting in Abuja, sum up the whole thing, and now give peanuts to the other units cannot take out of the doldrum. The center must be made.
Yeah. So
carry issues is able to carry. There are certain responsibility that should not be in the hand of center. Like the advocate was sharing with us a few minutes ago. How do you go to Abuja for certain licenses from Lagos? How does Abuja know about those tendencies that operate in Lagos? So we must as a people, sit down. And I am very sure that the National Assembly, with what I've seen with the governors doing, I am very sure too that the governors of the northern states will see this reality. There are one or two that might not see it from their perspective, but I'm sure if all of them come on board, it makes the job easy, because don't forget, constitutional review is political. Don't forget that. So you must get the buy-in of every of the stakeholders. Fortunately, the civil society are in the forefront. The human rights community are part of it. Stakeholders are part of it. Governors are coming on board now. So to me, Nigeria is on the path of resolving this matter. We
all right,
must
so
take this moment.
yeah,
we must not allow it go.
Honorable, if I may quickly come in and
deliver our nation from this.
Yeah, if I may quickly come in, for those who have criticized the process of constitution amendment, we've seen it in the 7th Assembly. We saw it in the 8th Assembly. It does not really come to something. And so the 9th Assembly has taken it up again with billions of naira being spent in these processes. We had a member of the National Assembly, a former governor, in fact, 2 governors from the Southeast who have come to this program and told us that there needs to be conversations. That kind of conversation is what we are trying to break down, how it will look like. People, a lot of Nigerians know what the problems are. They know how to go about it, but specifically how we can tackle it. For example, a former governor said we need a conference, a dialogue of ethnic nationalities to replace our constitution. That constitutional amendment, they say, is not the way to go. How do you react to that?
I agree largely to some extent. I agree with the former governor. I've been privileged to be part of the constitutional amendment for like 6-7 years now. And I've observed that, one, the work that we do, in as much as we had literals of, proposals and papers that are presented to us, when it gets to the state assemblies, it does not get the adequate scrutiny and attention it deserves. So people tend to not a bit trivialize what it is. So I think that it's not out of place for ethnic nationalities to come together, like what happened in 2014. And if we feel because it was Jonathan that convocated that national conference, you are not comfortable with it, nothing bad about it. But ideally, I would have said I would pick that document, should have come to the National Assembly review it, and send it to state. A lot of things were discussed in that conference that will move this nation forward. The constitution as it is today, of its truth, it is a deceit. It's false to say we, the people of Nigeria, we never sat at it anyway. The military sat down and gave that constitution. For us to, and it gives a lot of bottleneck, a lot of equibrasis in amending the constitution. So first of all, we must accept one fact that we need to sit down, because sitting down, join, reduce tension, and bring the people to feel that the resolution can become via the table. There has never been a good war, not a bad peace. There has never been a war that is not ended on the table. So I agree that there is need for convocation of a meeting. And we must not shy away from this fact. The president must realize that the nation Nigeria has lost those pillars that brought us together. In the last 5 years, under him, he has allowed these tendencies to fall apart the more by not acting on time. And it will not be in his own good if he wait and continue this thing, allow this thing to degenerate to a point that we cannot help ourselves. What you saw in Asaba is the sign that the governors come to realize that if we do not need this in the board, we might not have a country again.
All right.
That we need such meetings. We need such meetings to give legitimacy to whatever we decide in National Assembly. So when we get to the state assemblies, the state assembly will realize that this thing came from the people. It came from your community. It was the idea of your people that was brought to National Assembly and put into law for you to endorse. I think that's not a bad idea.
All right. Let me get back to Mr. Falana just in a moment on one of the recommendations made relating to federal review of federal appointments and security appointment. I do think that there is a federal character law which allows for any appointer to determine how appointments are made. But when the governors are making these recommendations, what do you think is going on in their minds? Do they think that there is some kind of lopsidedness or what?
I think the governors are challenging lopsided appointments in the country, which have aggravated the demand for separation. People feel they are excluded from the governance of the country, contrary to Section 14, subsection 3 of the Constitution, which provides that the government of Nigeria shall be constituted in such a manner as to reflect the federal character of the country. And the Federal Character Commission Act has set out how to distribute equitably political posts and social amenities in all the six geopolitical zones in the country. The 36 states have been grouped into 6 regions, and that appointments shall be made on the basis of those regions. And that if there are two appointments, one shall go to the north and one shall come to the south. If there are 6, or if there are 4, 2 by 2. And if there are 6, one shall go to each geopolitical zone. A situation whereby certain appointments are peopled by appointees from one region or 2, cannot be said to be in line with the provisions of the Constitution. For instance, I was compelled to write to the Senate recently when the National Human Rights Commission was being constituted by the President, and I discovered that the Northeast zone of 6 states has nobody is going to represent that region among the 16 members of the National Human Rights Commission. Whereas, out of the 4 nominees from the Northwest Zone, 3 nominated from one state, including the chair of the commission. Northeast, South, and Southeast, 4-member seat. North Central, Southwest, 2-member seat. And I said, no. This is against the provisions of the Constitution as well as the Federal Character Commission Act. And the Senate, in its wisdom, the members of the Senate, in their wisdom, saw merit in the petition. And instead of confirming the nominees, they resolved to, send my protest to a committee to look at it. And we have got to that stage where we can no longer allow certain appointments to stand. And I think that is what the governors are saying. For them to be able to defend the unity of the country, the president will have to reflect the federal character of the country in his appointment. That also goes for the state government and the local government. Because Section 14 of Section 3 of the Constitution applies to the federal government, the state governments, as well as the local government. That for the state, you must reflect the entire interests of the state.
All right.
And
yeah.
The same thing for our local governments.
All right. So just a moment.
We are talking of representation. Mind you, we are not talking of ethnic representation alone. You must also take cognizance of the interests of the workers, the youths of this country, and women as well as physically challenged people.
All right, let me bring in another lawmaker, Mr. Falano. I'm being joined by Senator Lekon Mustafa, representing Ogun State in the National Assembly. He joins us from Ogun State. Thank you so much, Senator, for coming in. I'll allow you to weigh in on this matter. You are a senator, a lawmaker representing the southern region of the country, and the governors have made their position known on this issue. For example, I would like you to talk us through your thoughts on the review of the revenue formula, for example. How best do you think these can be achieved?
Hello?
Senator,
Hello?
Yeah, Senator, we can hear you loud and clear. So, We can hear you loud and clear. If you can come into the conversation. And my question is about the revenue formula. What are your thoughts on this recommendation by the state governors?
Well, no, thank you very much, Sheung. No proposal has been brought forward yet, but I believe, but personally, I believe that more funds should be made available to the states and especially the local governments, because developments are more visible and are more impactful at the local government level.
Okay. So, I mean, at the end of the day, one would think with all of these recommendations made, some of these issues, the governors at some point said they will have to meet with the National Assembly. Maybe they are coming to Abuja to meet with some of the National Assembly members. So, in what practical steps do you think they can go that will make some of this resolution realizable and realistic at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, first of all, I need to assure you that some of the positions taken by the Southern Governors Forum are the positions that have been taken long before now by the Southern Senators. You can see that it didn't take us time as a group, the Southern Senators Forum, to immediately endorse the position taken by the Southern Governors, because that has always been our position. Then secondly, because it is our belief that development are better at the grassroots level. Whatever positions that they bring forward or recommendations that they submit or position papers that they submit will definitely be embraced by most of us. Of course, I cannot talk on behalf of the northern governors, but I can safely say that some of our colleagues in the Senate who are northerners, most of them are likely to be on the same page with us, because whatever happens to those of us from the south, it is very clear that same thing is happening to those of us from the north. So it won't be difficult for us to come together to embrace the position and suggestions of the southern governors whenever their position is brought to the level of the National Assembly.
A Labour leader, Mr. Aremu, has come out to say that the governors should not make this matter, they should not make Nigeria a debate republic. They should make it an action republic, in the sense that actions, practical actions need to be made. All of these ideas have been put forward. In your view, Senator, what would you say is the right step to take in resolving these issues? We know already some of these recommendations that have been made, but practically speaking, to make these things realizable, what do you think should be done urgently?
Thank you very much, Sheung. Well, in as much as I may want to think, or maybe I don't want to say I want to agree with what the Labour leader has said, because I also don't want Nigeria to be a debate country. But then, before actions can be taken on any issue, you must discuss those issues first before you take actions. So we're debating now. We have not really gone out of place by first of all debating, but when we are debating, it has to be in a very moderate manner before actions are taken. But I want to say that for us to give an immediate resolution of the issues on ground, I think just like the southern governors have suggested, there must be some kind of constitutional amendment. And then we should, the usual word that we have, everybody, that has become an anthem now, is restructuring, which must be done so that everybody will feel secured and safe in this country. We need to really restructure the country. There are so many things wrong. Some of them I may not necessarily discuss here, but on the floor of the National Assembly, we have to talk about them, especially the very high cost of running government. It has to be looked into, because the number of people who are running government are quite very minimal, very little when you look at the population of Nigeria. a lot of people are suffering. And the number of people at the National Assembly and the number of people in government are very small. This a small percentage of the people cannot be enjoying, while the majority of people will be suffering. So some of these things have to be looked into, and it is only when the country is restructured that some of these can be corrected.
Senator, a lot will be expected from the National Assembly in this regard. Although some people disagree that perhaps the best way to resolving our constitutional deficiency issue is not the amendment, is to totally change it. Perhaps let me go back to Mr. Falano so that we can get a sense of all of this. Mr. Falano, for those who argue that constitutional amendment, that we've seen it happen over and over again, that constitution, for those who debate that constitution is rotten. That is the unfortunate word that have been used to describe our constitution. But in that sense, they're asking for a total replacement of that constitution. So if that is a way to go from your own point of view, how do we then go about it? Is it by ethnic nationality conference? Another one?
I think what is being demanded by Nigerians is that we need to have an autonomous constitution, a constitution of the people, not an imposed constitution. I mean, it's not in doubt that this constitution was enacted and given to us by a military junta. And so if we want to organize ourselves as a people, a free people, we need to sit down to have our own constitution. But we're not likely to throw away the baby and the bathwater, having regards to certain provisions of the constitution, in which the Nigerian people have agreed. The question of fundamental human rights, the question of chapter 2, that's in chapter 4, chapter 2 of the constitution, the fundamental objectives and directing principles of state policy. And that is the provision that contains the socio-economic crisis of the Nigerian people. A provision, the section or the chapter provides that the economy of Nigeria shall be controlled by the government of the country to promote the happiness of our people. That chapter provides for minimum wage, living minimum wage, pension for retired people, unemployment benefits for young people without jobs, and so on and so forth. Nigerians are now demanding that that chapter, the provisions of that chapter, be made justiciable. Again, nobody says throw away that chapter of the Constitution.
Well, interesting conversations tonight. Unfortunately, we seem to be having issues with the connections with Mr. Falana there. But before we end the show tonight, I'd like to remind you of the conversation we had with the former governor of Enugu State, Chimaroke Inamane, who asked for an ethnic nationality conference. I'd like to remind you of that. Take a listen to him again.
The constitution that have been derived from all these fora are inefficient, they are unequal, and they are unjust, because those constitutions are results of machinations, political machinations, of people who got the people to make the constitution together. Are you following me? So what we need is a conference of ethnic nationalities on equal basis. Conference of ethnic nationalities on equal basis. Itiv 1, Biram 1, Igbo 1, Hausa Fulani 1, Yoruba 1, Ijaw 1. Multi-ethnic nationalities have to conference and produce a system that is equitable, that is fair and just.
Chimaroke Inamane, former Enugu State governor and a sitting senator in the National Assembly. Those are his thoughts. Conference of ethnic nationalities. Southern governors are asking for a dialogue. What kind of dialogue are we looking at? What kind of conversations are we looking at? Some of these recommendations have been made for the way forward for Nigeria. I must sincerely thank my guest tonight, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf, and Senator Lekon Mustafa. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching tonight. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.